Hello and welcome to the beSOURCE training session. Today we're gonna discover a little bit more about beSOURCE, the static analysis solution provided to you by Beyond Security. beSOURCE comes with two methods of deployment. So the first one would be the developer, which is a standalone deployment. That's the one we're gonna focus now. It's licensed by seats, so you would need to provide us the MAC address, and then with the MAC address, we will generate the license for you. So it can be used only with that computer that has this network card with the specific MAC address. Now, there's another method of deployment that is licensed by projects and amount of developers, amount of users, which called the enterprise solution. The enterprise solution is, by its name, you can understand that it's meant more for like big organizations with many developers. The enterprise solution as a server that will be provided to you as a CentOS VM. Once you start the server, you will be able to log in to a web page from where you can download a server like administrator client, view client, some integrations like plugins if you want to use Jenkins and Eclipse. So we now kind of provide a little short explanation about the architecture. So we have the server where we have the repository, like the inception rules, when we do where we do the actual testing. We have the version control, like SVNs or file systems, Git, etc. Those are the source file libraries. So we will integrate them into our beSOURCE server. We'll create a connection. Then we have the administrator, which can download its own client and where it can start an analysis, let's say a scheduled analysis. It can view projects, it can create users, create a role-based access management, etc. And then we have the developer side. So the developer side will have two plugins that can connect to Eclipse or Jenkins, so we can see the beSOURCE, beSOURCE recommendation while he writes the code or while using like developer tools. And then he will also have a view client where the project that he was allocated on by the administrator, he could see its results over there in the view client, and you can see the recommendations and what shall he do to fix the vulnerabilities. So we actually covered the application the lifecycle process, like the application development lifecycle. Now, we don't require any build or compile, so we actually scan source raw files, like raw source code files. So now we're gonna log into the server. Now I'm logging in as an admin, so you can see that I have all the options over here. So again, the beSOURCE admin console, where I can, create users, schedules scans, etc. The client, where I can view the source code. So as an R&D team leader, I might want to see the results as a client. So see the code that is related to me. What should I do to fix it? What should I do to fix it? And then I might want to see it as an admin as well, and create users and configure them and create schedule scans and create like a pooling of source code from Git or wherever. Now, what's nice about the Enterprise Edition that it also has like the components of the beSOURCE developer standalone. So before I submit my source code to the raw files, let's say that I have developed something on my personal computer, and now I want to push it to Git. So I can scan it with the beSOURCE Developer Edition that is a standalone on my computer, push it to Git, and then it will be scanned again and again. And if someone made changes, I will see the new violations coming in. But I don't need to push it to Git before checking it. So that's the importance of having the standalone. Now we also have the plugins I was speaking of. And we can go ahead and start the beSOURCE Developer Edition. Over here, you would see all the projects that I've run already. So you can see the different languages I've tested. Each project obviously is given a name. And once I click on the plus button, I would see the times in which this project ran. So if I ran it more than once, I would see it over here. As I said, the language used, the rule set used. We have many rule sets covered. The time it took for the scanning, the number of targets, like, number of files I've targeted, number of lines of code. You can see over here that scanning 40,000 lines of code took me only 2 minutes and 40 seconds, and that was Python 3. The number of files, out of my 6 files, how many files are defected? So I have 2. How many violations do I have? I have 678. And within the 678 violations, how many of them are new, in fact? So you can see here, a good example would be the sample project, where I have resolved 7 violations already, and I only have 280 remaining. So you can see that those 280, they were not added in the next, like in the second scan, because they are not new. I had 287 earlier on. Now, there's also a breakdown to the levels of criticality. So it could be either critical, high, medium, low, or information. And I can also generate a report for each and every project by clicking on report. Then I have 3 options, which we'll cover later. I can also delete each and every project, and so on. So let's go ahead and click on a new project. Now I would have to give it a name. So I'll call it sample 2, and I'm going to choose the language. So I like to work with Java Web because it covers also XML and JS. Within the language that we have Python 2.7, Python 3, we have Visual Basic, C++, C#, etc. So we're gonna go here with Java Web. You can see all the list of languages showing up here. Now I'll mention a few differences between the developer edition and the enterprise edition. Is that in the developer edition, you first choose a language, then choose a rule set, then choose like the files, like what you want to scan. While in the administrator, the workflow is a little bit different. So when you're gonna choose the source code that you want to scan, beSOURCE enterprise will recommend to you what should be the files to, like the languages that I should use. What is the most like relevant language? What is the most relevant rule set for those files? So we have a smart engine on the background. Now, when we look at the rule set, we have several types of rule sets. So we have a quality module that gives you just recommendations on how to make your code more effective, how to make your code faster. Then we also have security rule sets, such as the Android security, the CERT, OWASP, and we also have the Java Web rule set, which covers both the security side and the quality side. So if we look into this as like the most inclusive rule set would be the Java Web rule set, and then the quality it covers all the quality related violations, and then the security covers all the standards. So if I want something super specific, I would go with the OWASP Top 10 2017 or 2013. But if I want to have something more inclusive, I would go with Java Web. Now you can also see that I have a Joel Java modified. So that's the rule set that I've created. So I will show you later on how to create the rule set. Clicking on rule set details will show me all the information about the rule set. So what violations are being covered, which folders, etc. So it's kind of break down into folders. Now, if I'm looking at the specific violation, let's say we're gonna go down here and find something that is interesting. Let's see, should have cross-site scripting over here somewhere. Yeah, so I can see a very long description about cross-site scripting, in fact. So even if I didn't really know what cross-site scripting is, and I should have some knowledge about it, of course, but if I had no idea, then with the description covered here, I leaving the tool with more information than I had before. Then I would also see the example of what is a bad code and what is a good sample, what is a good code. So how should I do it? What should I fix? Now the fix will normally show up in blue, and you would also see a comment of course, in green. So tell you what was done, what shall we do. So for example, for cross-site scripting, we should check validation of external input. So if the name is null, then what we shall do is return. We should not let it run to our website. We will also see the standards. So of course, cross-site scripting show up on all the OWASP top 10 in every year. So, and it's also show up on CWE and on SANS top 25, sorry. And I also have like the reference, the external link, so I can read more about it. Now you can see the rule count, so how many rules I'm covering in each type of rule set. I'm gonna click on close here, and we're gonna click on next. Now we're gonna collect like the source code. So we're gonna find what files I'm going to fuzz. So I can connect to an external target. So it could be a file transfer, you know, FTP, FTPS, SFTP, etc. Could be like a version control, like SVN. Could be CVS, and then we also have Git. So Git can be connected, of course, encoded using SSH. And Team Foundation Server, of course. So we did provide you with all the major places to pull your source code from. So those are the most common places where companies use to store their source code. But today I'm gonna import it from my local file. So I have here like a sample folder with C, C#, CPP, C++, Perl, etc. So I'm gonna choose Java, and clicking on the plus button will import this source code. So you can see the filter conditions. So those are the types of files that we will look for: XML, JS, JSP, and Java. I'm going to click on next. Here I can choose also the amount of threads being used. I'm going to click on create and click on finish. So I can play a little bit with my menu and change the view of it. I like to see things in category view and in project. Those are the two options that we have, but I think those are really useful, and it's better than just going over your source code, one by one. I think the category view gives you some really good insights. So first, we're going to see some information about the scanning that we did, how many violations we had, where, etc., how many files we've scanned. Then we have a pie chart showing like how many of them are high risk, critical, etc. And now we're going to go ahead and click on X over here so we can remove it. So two ways of looking at things. One is going to your project, like project view, seeing the folders, they are divided into the actual file. So I can click on one of the files that say that the customer is an important file for me. I can see that it has 35 violations. So the number in red signifies the amount of violations. So within action, let's say I have only one per file, for example. So I'm clicking on TB customer, and then I can see, for example, some of the violations. So I can click on flow trace. That will show me where the code has been called earlier. So where this code is like relevant. So for example, the null pointer difference, the references has been called twice already. And when I fix it, I need to fix it on line 32 and then on line 19. And now I also have the ability to click on the violation itself. For example, when information leaked through error message. So I would see the description, I would get the sample, and I would get the standard where it appeared. So in this case, again, appeared on CWE and OS top 10. And so I get the understanding of how to fix it. I can look into the good sample. I can see what's written in blue. So those are the things that I shall fix, etc. Now we're gonna click on the X over here. This is the view by the project. So I can also view things by the category view. The categorical view is really nice because it shows me, for example, for each violation, let's say we look at the ECP. So that's a category. And then we look at ECP, we'll see all the violations that I have. So I have one critical. So it's a copy of a mutable class. And I can click on it as well. And right click on the violation itself, I can modify the violation status. So it's currently a defect, but I can change it to not defect. Let's say, I think it's like solved, etc. So I can put in a comment. I can change it to ignorable, meaning I know it's a defect. I know I haven't solved it, but I don't want to see it. It's not important for me at the moment. I can change it to not reviewed, saying someone needs to look into that. Someone needs to review it. Now, all those comments will be useful because I have here in the view the ability to see the summary of the violation and to see like the violation history. So I can see all the comments that I gave to each and every violation. So I can definitely understand, like, how to manage my process better, how to manage my security posture better within the security software development lifecycle. So, for example, I'm going to modify it. I'm going to change it to ignorable, and there you go. It has been removed. I'm going to change this one to not defect, saying um, fixed in the next version, etc. So again, it has been removed from my categorical view. Now I have the console. This is more like beSOURCE job, what beSOURCE done, if there were any errors, if there's any warning, etc. And now we're gonna look more into the projects, because I really like to work by the project, because I know what files are important, what files are less important for me. So let's say we look into the action file and we have the action1 Java. I see the leftover debug code. That's really not interesting. So I can go ahead and exclude that entire file, saying, okay, this file, I know it has a violation, but don't run it in the next time. Next time you do security analysis, don't show me data from that file. Now I can go into DAO and say, this is a really important file for me. I want to scan it once again. So I'm going to do a partial analysis. Let's say that the developer said that he has fixed this violation, and I want to verify. But I don't want to run my entire project again. Although beSOURCE is fast and it's going to do it in a very fast manner, I still don't want to run it again. So I can just run a partial analysis. So you can see that I've run the partial analysis on that specific file. So now we're going to look into, if you remember the rule set that had my name on it. So we can go into tools and click on edit rule set. And now you would see that I can basically copy the recommendation is to copy the most inclusive rule set, in fact. So I'm going to copy the rule set, and then I can modify it. I already have a modified rule set that I've created, so I will make changes on it. Let's find it. So basically, it's a good example also for all the types of rule sets that we have, like a lot of OWASP, a lot of CWE, MISRA covered as well, CERT covered as well, HIS, and so on. And there you go. You can find my specific rule set. And let's say that the runtime exe is, for me, not critical. It's a high, just because I decided. So I can go ahead and apply it. And let's say that for me, I'm gonna go into the RI loops and say RI loops for me, that's actually critical. So I can change it. I can change basically everything in here, except for the standard, which is, that's where it appeared. So I cannot really change it. But even the bad sample and good sample, I can edit it. I can use it for whatever reason I want. And so I can go into the option and filter out like analysis targets, filter out the regular expression. So later I can see it in the options. So there you go. I've actually changed a bit of my rule set. So I changed some rules, and I can also go ahead and delete like specific rules. Say I want to delete the compare object. That's what I like about beSOURCE, that it gives me a lot of flexibility to see things the way I want. So now I'm going to look at the DAO. I'm going to try to generate a report. So when I'm looking into generation of reports, there are 3 types of reports. There is a report by standard saying, I run the most inclusive test, but I actually want to see things in OWASP Top 10 2017. That's the most relevant, of course. Okay, that's my decision. So I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. And you would see another report being created, and that report show me only 1 critical, 19 high risk, and so on. So maybe I have a lot of issues, but when looking into this in OWASP, perspective, it's not so bad. So I can go ahead and generate that type of report by standard. Now, when I've generated that report, 22 pages report, I can see here the critical vulnerabilities, then the high risk vulnerabilities, etc. and I can see it by the OS player level. So I can see that I've broke like injection, and I broke the broken authentication. I basically broke, I think, any level of OWASP rules here. No, not all of them. So I only broke one, 8 to 6. I didn't have any cross-site scripting, for example. So that's good. And then I would see the breakdown per file. So my file TB customer violates OWASP in 10 cases, and my file item master violates it in 4 cases. Then I will see it by the the violation, the criticality. So first data handling, 1 violation, and then AO handling I have 77, then security function. So as you can understand, it goes by criticality and then by amount. So first it will show me the most critical, then it will show me the the most critical with the most amount, with the highest amount of defects. Then it will show me the next most critical with most amount of defects, and then less, etc., etc. Then you can see the actual violation, like path reversal. You can see the entire explanation, same as you can see in the console, a bad and good example. And then you can see the occurrence. So this is the occurrence on my actual source code. So you can see it's been called by 101, 102, 104, 64, 90, 44, 45. You see the actual lines of code where it's been called. Then you can see that the information leaked through error message, again, bad and good example, with like the description and the occurrences. So here I have way more occurrences. I have, in fact, 77 occurrences. So you can see it, line 36, line 30, line 29, etc. So that's one type of report that I can generate. Another type of report would be the general, like, the most inclusive report that shows everything, all the data. So to understand this report, it will show you the number of files that you've tested, the number of lines of code that you've tested, the number of files out of the 32, how many files have defects, how many defections you have, how many violations you have. The defects is by priority, categorized by priority, and then like the files, and then it will show you the rules. So how many tests you have that are like critical risk that you have violated, how many high risk tests you have violated, etc. Then you can see the breakdown by folder, by file. So TB customer has 35, and SQL query has only 11, etc. Then you can see it again by priority. So most critical with the most violation, followed by the another critical with less violation, followed by another critical with even less violations, and then shows the I with most violations. And again, the same explanation and same report. But that's all nice, and the standard is actually a really useful report, but I like to see things from a different angle. So I like to work also in vulnerability assessment and in source code analysis. I like to work in a pattern saying, I'm going to fix what's most urgent, and then I'm going to go and fix more and more and more. So my first report that I'm going to generate would be the critical. After fixing all the criticals, I will generate one for the iris because I want to digest it. Now, all of those reports, I can generate them into Excel and into a PDF. So I'm going to go ahead and click on PDF. And there you go. I'm going to click on yes. Now you see that it doesn't cover, it does cover all the lines of code, but it doesn't cover all the high and medium and low risk violations. So you can see only 27 files have a defect on that is a critical level, and 85 rule set were broken, I had vulnerabilities on. So you can see the TB customer now has only 10 defects compared with the 29 we had when we were looking at the entire stack, or 36 was it. Then you can see the breakdown, and again, good code, bad code samples, and all the occurrences. So that was me giving you a beSOURCE training, and I hope you enjoy it. And if you have any questions, please contact support@beyondsecurity.com. Thank you.